I'm sorry I did that to us, man.
You know, Diddy bought his son a Bentley. Maybe, you know, he could buy you one also while you're
He
out.
got me a Lamborghini.
Well, that's nice.
I haven't gotten it yet, though.
Yeah, I know. When is that coming, that Lamborghini? We talked about this last
He
time.
had the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
You know, Justin Bieber had a post the other day on his Instagram talking about all the drugs that he did when he was younger and how much it fucked him up. And now he's got a relationship with the Lord, and he's got, you know, he's married, and he's trying to be a normal person.
Yeah.
But he's struggling with the fact that he was insanely famous when he was a kid.
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So
they wouldn't let him. Actually, someone made reference to the fact that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him to the diddler. Does that sound like a good guy?
It's horrible.
Does that sound like a good guy? Now that we know what Diddy's really like, what kind of fucking asshole do you gotta be to take another boy, another talented boy, and put him in your place so it ain't gotta be you no more? Because that's what pedophiles do. They get victims, and then once they get to a certain age and they get too old for them to enjoy them, they send them out to go get other young kids. Now, if Usher is a procurer, and if Usher knew what was going to happen to any of those young children that he took to the Flavor Freak off, is he a good guy? Especially considering what happened to him, especially considering that he sat Howard Stern, and Howard Stern said, would you send your kids to Puffy's Flavor Camp? And his immediate response was, hell no! So it's good enough for everybody else's kids, but it's not good enough for yours.
What's going on with you guys? Are you working together?
I'm not. I mean, I think that we've become friends in a strange way, you know?
Like Robin Big.
Yeah, it's like, exactly.
I'm Big and you're Robin.
Yeah. No, I mean, to a lot of us, he's like a little brother. You know what I'm saying? He's not afraid to call and ask for advice. He's somebody that, in the industry-wise, the record industry is a strong family, and he's somebody that, you know, we definitely have our arms around, and we want to protect him because he's such genuinely a nice person besides his talent. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the greatest kids that you could ever know.
Joe Rogan has seen a lot over the course of his career: cage fights, controversies, scandals. But what he uncovered about Justin Bieber's past left him visibly shaken. In a recent episode of his podcast, Rogan didn't hold back as he addressed the deeply disturbing information emerging from sealed court documents, private testimony, and verified footage involving Sean Diddy Combs and a then 15-year-old Justin Bieber. The mood was different. There were no jokes, no lighthearted banter, just a host. Emotional and focused, trying to come to terms with what he'd just seen. The story begins years ago when a young Justin Bieber was thrust into the spotlight. Discovered through YouTube and mentored by Usher, Bieber was quickly signed and promoted as the next big thing. But behind all the glitz, there was another figure waiting in the shadows: Diddy. Publicly, Diddy claimed he was acting as a mentor, someone looking out for the teen star. But his version of mentorship didn't involve music lessons or stage training. Instead, he boasted about having Justin under his wing for 48-hour stints, during which Bieber would allegedly be completely removed from his normal team and placed under Diddy's direct supervision. That arrangement wasn't just unusual, it was alarming. Rogan played a clip on his show where Diddy casually explained that Justin was living out his dream for a couple of days with him, stating he had custody over him. The term was later walked back, but it raised more questions than answers. What kind of guardian separates a teenager from his manager and family? What were the real motives behind these isolated stays at private properties, especially when other adults weren't allowed access? Rogan pointed out the disturbing power dynamics involved and how young artists often find themselves in situations where they can't say no, not because they're okay with what's happening, but because they're scared of losing everything. Usher, who played a major role in launching Bieber's career, also came under scrutiny. He introduced Bieber to Diddy and reportedly supported these interactions, at least initially. According to some accounts, Usher eventually became concerned and tried to reclaim control, but by then, the damage had already begun. In a resurfaced interview, when asked if he'd send his own kids to a so-called mentorship camp run by Diddy, Usher answered flatly, "Hell no." That single sentence, Rogan argued, told the world everything it needed to know. Adding to the tension, Rogan then read from Bieber's own recent social media posts. Bieber had opened up about the immense pressure he faced as a teenager, referencing drug use, anxiety, and a battle for mental stability. While he didn't name names, Rogan pointed to newly released court documents that filled in the blanks. These documents reportedly included evidence that Diddy requested control over Justin's travel, accommodations, and even his security. Control that never appeared in any formal entertainment contract, but what shook Rogan to the core was a handwritten note included in the court files. It was scribbled by a young Bieber, pleading to leave one of Diddy's properties early, saying the schedule felt too intense and that the expectations were impossible. For Rogan, reading that note was a breaking point. How does the most famous kid in the world end up begging to go home, he asked. That's not mentorship, that's control. The podcast escalated further when Rogan described a piece of surveillance footage submitted by Bieber's legal team. The grainy video showed a 16-year-old Justin, flanked by assistants, walking through a dim hallway at 3:12 a.m. He was holding a guitar, but there was no sign of a stage or a performance. The video included audio snippets, radio chatter, urgent voices, and an eerie silence. Rogan noted how a whiteboard seen through an open door had the words, "Full Immersion Weekend," written at the top. Beneath it were bullet points like limited phone use, no unscheduled calls, and vocal drills until completion. There was no mention of typical artist development, no coaching, no music theory. Just structure, isolation, control. Calls started flooding into the studio, industry veterans, former artists. They shared similar stories, being brought to remote estates, separated from their teams, told to focus entirely on a mentor who demanded absolute loyalty. One artist recalled being asked to give up his phone for days at a time. Another said they were encouraged not to answer calls from their own manager. These weren't just one-off stories, they were part of a larger, troubling pattern. By the second hour of the podcast, the fallout had already begun. 3 major brands quietly started removing Diddy-related content from their digital platforms. A popular sneaker collaboration was paused indefinitely. Streaming platforms flagged specific music videos for internal review. The industry, once blind to the whispers, was beginning to react to the receipts. Rogan turned to one of the final pieces of evidence, a therapist's report outlining Bieber's mental state during the height of his early fame. The summary pointed to a cycle of isolation, emotional burnout, and constant fear of failure. The therapist described it as a reward-punishment loop, where praise was given only when full compliance was met and any dissent was met with shame or silence. Rogan, his voice trembling, said, "This wasn't guidance. It was a power grip." Tears welled in his eyes as he urged anyone in the industry who had seen these signs to speak up now. If you knew something was wrong, say something. Silence doesn't protect careers. it creates more victims. He made it clear that his anger wasn't just about what had happened to Bieber, it was about the system that allowed it. The unchecked power, the glamorized control, the illusion of mentorship hiding darker intentions. He closed the 3-hour podcast with a vow. All ad revenue from that episode would go to youth advocacy groups fighting for artist protection and mental health support. Success should open doors, Rogan said quietly, not lock them. As news of the episode spread, fans and artists alike began reevaluating their views of Diddy. What once looked like ambition now looked like manipulation. What once was praised as mentorship now appeared to be something else entirely. And through it all, one voice cut through the noise, Justin Bieber's. Not by shouting, not by blaming, but by surviving, healing, and finally revealing the truth. The music industry is at a turning point. Fame can no longer excuse questionable behavior. Influence can no longer hide behind big beats and platinum records. Rogan's emotional unraveling wasn't weakness. It was the sound of someone finally seeing behind the curtain and choosing not to look away. What happens next depends on how many others will do the same.